Welcome to the EMU FMA podcast, a place for all things finance. Today we've got our second episode, which I'm thrilled to be sharing with a really cool financial planner. We want to thank Dana Nelson for coming on to discuss this story. Kellmann and I have been looking forward to speaking with you. To start, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Awesome. Well, we're glad you get to be here with us today. Kind of our first question we'd like to dive into is, could you tell us where you went to school, and kind of branching off that, what kind of student were you like?
I went to Northern Illinois University, and it was in the 60s. And we were in the middle of incredible riots based on the possibility of me going to Vietnam. And it was a pretty chaotic period. A lot of riots, a lot of school shutdowns, a lot of Kent State happened at that point in time. So there was a tremendous amount of political upheaval on campus.
Mm-hmm. And did you find yourself easily getting involved in that, or did you want to kind of stay in the back shadows of that kind of political chaos?
I was business manager for the 9th largest college newspaper in the country. So I was incredibly involved.
Oh.
So, demonstrations, shutting down the university, doing a number of things that were very politically active.
That's awesome. What kind of got you into that role?
You know, the job was available and I wanted to be in finance, and I had a background in that, and I needed the money. And so I applied and I got it.
That's nice.
I just showed up.
Just showed up. That's what they say. You gotta just show up most of the time.
That's exactly right.
That's awesome. Well, it's cool. It's cool you went to that school. It's awesome.
So we're also curious about your financial planning backstory. Like, when did you start as a planner? Was it the first thing you went into, or that kind of thing? Where do you work before?
The financial planning was my third career. I got almost an MBA at Northern. I think I was one course short, but I decided just to, I was in college in order to avoid the draft at that point in time. So part of me going on for a master's was just to stay out of the Vietnam at that point. So when I got out, I applied to a electrical wholesaling company called W.W. Granger, and I traveled with them as a branch manager probably for about 16, 17 years. I'm 75 years old, so I've been around for a while. And so I held that job for quite some time, ended up in Detroit, in Dearborn, as a matter of fact, working in that branch, and then lost that job because I had an affair with my assistant at that point in time. And so was put out of work quite suddenly. And so I got a fair amount of money based on a profit sharing program. And I knew something about finance, but I didn't know a lot. So I wanted to know more about how money worked and how I could parlay this money into a larger sum. So I entered an ad in the paper for a financial advisor. And that job paid $500 a month at that point in time. And I came from a job that was making about $50,000. And the woman that I had the relationship with, we ended up getting married, had a child, and turned that into an incredible financial planning career.
Wow. That's a story right there. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, the truth will bear all light. There you go.
Right. That's awesome. It's crazy how something like that can come from that. You
totally
probably felt like the
magic.
end of the world when your job kind of fell through, and just to pull it out, you made it happen.
Well, I was scared. So when you're scared, you do a lot of things you wouldn't necessarily do. And I got myself into a bad spot based on my emotions and my sex drive and all that kind of stuff. And so it just happened.
Yeah.
That's a whole other podcast, though.
That's a whole other one. We'll start another one on that that topic.
Classic Caleb.
I love it. Well, kind of branching off into that. So you're in the financial planning industry. What kind of services do you provide, and what kind of services do you like to provide? What kind of are your favorites?
I like helping people. So
Mhm.
the other part of my life has been devoted to crisis intervention. So I've done
Okay.
work with police. I've done work in Africa with women that have
Mhm.
had AIDS. I've
Mhm.
done work in Paraguay
Mhm.
on teaching language, English as a second language. And so part of my background in terms of crisis intervention is being able to deal with people that have got dilemmas empathically and help them solve problems.
Mhm.
So in doing that, I started to work in finance in order to combine the two,
Mhm.
the merging of being able to make people rich or help them become rich,
Mhm.
as well as dealing with it in a way that actualized them, made them
Mhm.
be bigger than what they actually thought they could be, taking people places they wouldn't go on their own.
That's super awesome.
Thank
Wow.
you.
That's super awesome because it's like you're fulfilling dreams for them that you know that they don't even have in their mind, and you're helping them get to a place that they didn't even originally think they could be. That's a different that's a different kind of
Exactly correct.
dream.
That is
Awesome.
exactly correct.
Yeah. I can see why there's such a draw towards like being a financial planner. There's a lot, there's a broad range of almost moral comfort it brings to you because of that. So I think
No, that's exactly correct.
yeah.
It's a way of taking people, again, places they wouldn't go on their own, and
Yeah.
you become a member of their family. And I've
Mhm.
had people as clients for 35, 40 years.
Yeah.
And I have their children, I have their parents, or I should say, this is a collective effort. There's 7 of us now that do this.
Okay. Nice. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, sort of shifting gears, I guess. So, how's financial planning in your experience changed over time, and how have you adapted from the beginning to sort of now?
In the beginning, it was just a buzzword to try to bring in the insurance industry, the brokerage industry, the annuity business. So it was a unification of all those schools of thought, and dealing with one specific family or one person. So that marriage took, and they didn't even have written financial plans in the beginning. It was a question of coming in, disclosing your financial situation, and then with that disclosure, myself coming up with various products to marry up to that.
Mm-hmm.
It evolved as things got worse, number of recessions, a number of market downturns of some significance, issues related to Y2K,
Mm-hmm.
9/11, were incredible, people losing their jobs. So you became more of an advocate for the person and more of a holistic approach. And the holistic approach on that was not only selling them something, but
Mm-hmm.
managing their situation relative to the opportunities that were available in terms of their jobs, their career placement, doing resumes for them, trying to make them bigger, better, faster, stronger in a number of areas, not just dealing with the finance. So when I started, the Dow was 800. It's 30 something thousand now. So CDs were like 15%. Money markets were like 11%. There was a price and wage freeze had just ended. So the economy was really, really very, very shaky, and
Mm-hmm.
and interest rates were incredibly high. Inflation was outrageous, gasoline lines and all of that kind of stuff. So it was a hard time. It was a very hard time. So it evolved in that it became finance used to be a rich man's business, meaning people that were really, really wealthy were the only people that were using financial advisors. What happened over the years in the 80s and the 90s is it became more of a mainstream, what's the word I'm looking for? It trickled down. It became more of an everyday kind of thing that everybody could use and everybody could benefit from.
Right.
that was the biggest change I think that I have ever seen, that people all got wealthy very, very, very quickly. So if you were investing in the market, if a Dow goes from 800 to 30 something thousand, you just get rich by paying attention and have people deal with you in a way that you take the risk to make the decision to actually do the investment.
That's crazy. You've seen a lot of different transitions in the market, and then and what our economies look like over time. And because of that, so you have these clients and you're experiencing things such as the dot-com bubble, the housing crisis in 2008. What do you tell clients when they start to see maybe their portfolios dipping, or they're worried about economic times? Because you're probably one of their first call when things start kind of going downhill. Do you comfort them? Are you, more upfront about what's actually happening and being aggressive with your tactics? What's kind of your way of approaching it?
Well, first of all, they're usually not calling me. I'm calling them. So by reaching out to somebody, it shows them that you care as much about their situation as they do.
Right.
So I'm proactive on this stuff. I'm not waiting for them to find me. I'm going out and seeking them. I'm telling them that we're all in this together, that usually this is the very, very first time that I have ever seen anything this significant or this catastrophic happening to an economy, and that we're going to get through it together. And so we develop a strategy with that based on their risk propensity. So how they feel about losing money. Nobody likes to lose money, don't get me wrong, but some people are in a better state of mind to handle that based on their financial position in terms of the job that they have, or the amount of cash in the bank that they've got, or the amount of people that they surround them with based on their parents or whatever, on their financial network. So everybody's kind of different on that, but everybody's still frightened. Everybody's in the same situation and they're scared. But again, I've developed relationships with people along the way on this that they end up trusting me. So the key thing here is trust and contact. So I would call these people in the middle of the 2008 financial crisis once a month, because the market was dropping from September until March by thousands of points a month. So you didn't know when this was going to end. You couldn't tell where the bottom actually was. So you had to stay with the people that you cared about, that were your clients. And you didn't know that this was eventually going to have to end, or we were all going to be on the street corner selling roses out of a cup.
Right.
Yeah. So you see that concept, the collectiveness of that gives people the courage to stay with it, because everybody's in the same spot.
So you talked about you had to build that trust with clients, and that obviously takes time and proof proof in the pudding, basically, that you can do the job that they are coming to you about. When you're starting off as a financial planner, because I guess that's kind of that's the tricky part, is how do you build clientele that trusts you? Do you start with people that you know, or do you kind of just find people and you have a really good marketing scheme?
Well, in the beginning, I did a lot of dialing and smiling. So I called a lot of people that I was with American Express in those days, and IDS, and they would sell leads that people would get in the mail, and they would check a box to say they were interested and they wanted to be contacted. Well, I would buy those and I would call those people and see if I could be the person that could contact them and begin to explain to them, because you have to be mindful. In those days, people didn't really understand a lot about financial planning. They just thought it was selling insurance in a different guise. I had to help them understand that I was going to try to bring everything together. I was going to try to keep them safe, but make them money with calculated risk based on their ability to absorb that risk.
Right.
So we just did a lot of calls, continual amount of calls. And then you narrow the calls down to people that were genuinely, because sometimes people can't tell you no, they don't have that ability. They just lead you on. Well, I had to separate that out and find out people were humoring me
Right.
or they were genuinely interested in sitting down and talking to me.
Mhm.
Well, that took a while. But again, doing crisis intervention, you get really, really good at asking questions
Right.
and dealing with people empathically. And part of the empathic part of that is repeating back to them what they're saying and trying to hit an emotional chord
Right.
instead of a selling chord.
Mhm.
So trying to actually find out what they're really looking for and see
Right.
if you can apply for the job of
Mhm.
being that person that solves that problem.
Oh, that's a great approach. I never really thought about it as almost selling emotion to them rather than selling a product or selling
People
a
all I'm doing is putting people in the right frame of mind to buy. I'm not really
right.
selling anything. People are not
Mm.
buying from me. They're in the right frame of mind to listen to more of what I have to say.
Right.
See if I'm worth the amount of time that they need to put into the hour in their day that they're going to talk to me about their financial situation.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. That's really interesting. You said like hitting the instead of the sales chord, sort of like the more one-to-one, like interpersonal,
Right.
or building that connection. So I think that's really valuable.
Right. Yeah. I've never sold anything, if you think about it. I've always put them in the right frame of mind to ask them, is there any reason why we shouldn't do this? And let them answer that question back to me. And if there's not a reason why we shouldn't do this, then we should proceed if they trust me and if it looks like I'm going to be the person that's going to deal with them. And these are very, very long-term relationships. And we all got rich together.
Wow,
That's a great feeling. That's awesome.
pretty cool business, I think.
Well, it's been a tremendous amount of fun, and it's been tremendously rewarding.
Wow.
When you're taking people places they don't go on their own, that either scares the shit out of you, or it scares you, but it also, when it works really, really well.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. And so in order for it to work, you're right. Obviously, you want to work with good financial planners, right? Because you didn't just do this, just you. You work with other people,
Right.
from the sounds of it. What
Right.
qualities, because you want to work with good partners and you want to work with people who are going to
Right.
operate in the same manner as you. What kind of intrinsic qualities in people did you that look attractive to you in terms of someone to work with? So what would basically make a good financial planner? What are some good characteristics in a person?
I cannot teach I cannot teach integrity. I cannot teach the desire to want to learn. They have to come to the table with good integrity, the ability to want to be involved in something that's kind of bigger than themselves. And they got to have the ability to follow up and develop solid relationships that are based on authenticity. So they have to be very authentic. You can't just script this out. You have to have your heart and soul into it. So I would develop relationships with people that I thought were as smart or smarter than I was, and that knew different things than I did. So I was always looking to try to shore up my weaknesses. I'm a very good speaker. My ability to be close to people is good, but my detail based on my ability to deal with numbers and my ability to be able to analyze those numbers in a way that I would trust myself, I had to have somebody else basically checking that. So I always dealt with what my weaknesses were. So if I didn't know a lot about taxes, then I would go find a tax person and then rely and send that tax person my business.
Mm-hmm.
And then in exchange, I didn't even necessarily need their business. I just needed their mind. I needed to have them know rules that I didn't study, that I didn't know myself, and that I was in a position to learn from them. And the client was also in a position to get their questions asked from them almost immediately. So when I'm in an appointment, I would call either the lawyer or the accountant or the social worker or any of those people that were in that business of solving financial problems and greasing the skids for people, so it made their life easier. And that's how I make choices.
Well, I bet like you being able to contact other people, like you said, contacting a tax accountant over taxes if a client has a question about that. you're not just spouting off information that might not be completely true. You're
Exactly.
creating so much trust, because that's hard to do. That's hard to call up that person and admit like, hey, I'm not quite sure. Let's call this person and say, I bet that also contributed to that loyalty and that trust.
I have and had a great posse. So it's like the commercial with the Verizon guy that you walk out the building and there's all the helicopters and and I used to tell the client, my job is to keep you financially safe, to make sure that you know where you're economically vulnerable. And I got this posse of people that help me do this. I can't do this by my baby self. I got to have help. And so that's how that network developed.
That's sweet. And it's cool. Like, you have this story of kind of this come up, this rise up, and you did it in a very holistic way, which is a cool way of approaching. You didn't have to be the salesman or be the shoddy, typical you're a financial industry person.
Right.
You build a lot of friendships in the process, it sounds like. And
but the other thing you have to be mindful of, and I don't know if you know this being in finance, but sometimes your position in terms of the way you're looked at, you can be one step higher than a used car salesman. And I have nothing against used car salesmen, so don't get me wrong on this. But sometimes the objective to try to sell something causes you to compromise your values. So instead of talking to people, you're talking at them. And you're more concerned about how you're going to make the sale than how you're going to help the person. I had very good luck at helping the people, and I've done really well with it.
Would you say that's one of the biggest like morality entanglements you have to wrestle with as a financial planner, is riding that line of not selling something and really helping the client?
Right. Well, you're in a 75-25 business. So when I'm sitting across the table from a client, I've got 75% of the knowledge and they've only got 25% of the knowledge.
Right.
I have to perform with incredible integrity. And there's a tremendous amount of temptation in this business. Tremendous amount. You read it every day in the headlines about how people are cheating to win. You lose that credibility if you play that game that way.
Right.
And it makes it hard. And a lot of people do. A lot of people will cheat to win. I mean, that's part of the, unfortunately, at this point in time, sometimes the American way. Well, if you can do it with incredible integrity, then at least I can feel much better at night knowing that I've done, and you have to deliver some very tough messages about people's habits in terms of how they spend money, or how they neglect the money that they spend, or how the money doesn't work as hard as they do, or how wasteful they are, or how status driven they are. Any number of variables there makes a difference.
Well, and I think when you intercept your own personal desires into a business like that, those are kind of the ones that don't, you may explode in value initially, but it doesn't seem incredibly sustainable. And so
you're right.
Building a business off integrity is definitely, I'm glad I got to speak to you today, because I think one of the biggest things I'm pulling from this, and I'm sure Oscar is too, is the value of integrity and the value of valuing your customers and valuing the clients you're working with. That's cool.
Definitely.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, that life is a struggle between the spirit and the flesh. All right. At any point in time, there's any number of temptations that can pull you off course. You can make those mistakes, hopefully while you're young, and learn from them. Then you get better as a result of having went through the crisis and the dilemma in order to make yourself a better person.
Yeah. Well, I'll hold on to that. I like that. I like that.
Okay, very good.
Some wisdom from Dana.
Yeah.
Right. The wisdom. I'm holding on. Well, you know what? We really appreciate your time today. We really thank you for coming on and speaking with us.
You're welcome.
And thank you everyone for watching and tuning into the EMU FMA podcast. We had a great time with our guest, and really look forward to the next one. See you guys soon.